Okay, good morning, friends, or rather, good evening. And this is the last of the 6 classes meant for your plant disease management. And we will discuss about leftover portion in today's class. So far we discussed about various diseases, that is, diseases caused by various fungi, bacteria, viruses, mycoplasma, and we discussed about uh, various pests and also parasitic plants. Then in the second part, that is what we call disease management principles of disease management. In that, we have seen there are 6 important principles. Of course, one is avoidance, one is execution, avoidance, execution, then protection, then immunization, and the last one is what we call therapy. So these are the 6 important principles of plant disease management. Of course, these are the principles, and a classification of these management principles were given by Wedgel and others. And coming to the strategies of this plant disease management. So we have here also we have 6 important strategies to check the spread of the disease or to minimize the damage caused by these pathogens and insects and weeds. And they are, for our convenience, we group them into 2 main categories. One is preventive measures, the other is curative measures. Under preventive measures, cultural method, mechanical method, physical method, then curative method, primarily what we call chemical method and biological. So by using chemicals and also by making use of the natural enemies of these disease-causing organisms, you can protect your crop and thereby the suffering of the farmers can be reduced. You will also get good prices and also good yields will be there, and it will be highly remunerative for the farmer. So primarily preventive and the curative. Preventive means good number of preventive measures are there. That is what we call, the avoiding. That is seeing that the pathogen does not make an entry into your field. Avoiding or preventing. Then, so for this, what we do, we employ various cultural practices. Cultural practices are nothing but agronomic practices. That is ploughing, correct timing of sowing, correct timing of weeding, correct time of harvesting, and maintaining sanitation in your field. Then after harvest, exposing or drying them in hot sun, then sacking, and even in godowns, taking various precautions so that your produce does not suffer any more loss. These are all cultural practices. Then, of course, mechanical practices. Mechanical means you will remove either by hand picking or by making trenches or spraying, or spreading what we call mulches in the form of plastic sheets, or what we call erecting certain sticky tapes, repellents, sticky ones, and fly traps, fire traps, etc., etc. Then coming to physical. Physical means of plant protection include air, water, and sun. These are naturally available. So you make use of the natural processes that are available and free of cost. So how best we can make use of these processes or these resources that are at our disposal? So generally, by using, so for certain cases we have seen in case of rust, muds, etc., even cankers or even red rot of sugarcane, etc. So many diseases are soil borne or seed borne. So these seed borne, they can be protected by treating with various chemicals. So thiram, aptan, etc., or sulfur dust, or by hot water treatment. So here hot water we are making use of. This hot water can be, hot and cold waters can be released into your field, either flooding the field or drainaging the field, draining the water. Get rid of these disease-causing organisms. Maybe your bacteria, maybe fungi, maybe nematodes. They can be checked. Their growth will be checked, their reproductive pace will be checked, and their life cycle will be cut, so that they will not be in a position to produce. Reproduction gets. So we will also be checking what we call spreading. So these are all physical processes. Physical. And the last one, of course, I told you, making use of this hot sun, especially the summer sun, by by spreading all your produce under hot sun, or making a deep plow and exposing the grubs and other insects and eggs that are there, larvae that are there in your field, and stubules, etc. You're burying them, burning them, etc. So these are all physical. Then of course we discussed about chemical processes, and we also discussed about chemical. We have seen chemistry, of course. Chemicals, I told you the chemicals are to be last resort. When you were agronomic, physical, you were mechanical, you were biological, methods fail, then only as a last resort go for the chemical control. Because, chemical control, indiscriminate use of chemicals, not only increase your input cost, but they will be acting even on the enemies of your pathogens, natural enemies of your pathogens. So many sparrows, so many crows, so many butterflies, so many bees. They are beneficial organisms. They are helpful organisms. But while spraying them, indiscriminate spraying, you are killing not only harmful, but also your useful organisms. So hence, that is the one way. The other way is you are polluting your environment. That is where your air gets polluted, your water gets polluted, your soil gets polluted, your produce, agricultural produce gets, your seeds, your pulses, cereals, fruits, whatnot, tubers, all your foodstuffs, including your milk, gets contaminated with these chemicals. So that way, chemicals are to be used as a last resort. We have seen, we discussed about that chemicals, primarily we classify them into, inorganic, organic, again organic. So many number of chemicals are there. So whatever the case may be, the chemicals are to be used as a last resort. Even I told you about the history of the chemicals. The first chemical that was produced by Pierre Alexis Millard in France, to check what we call, to save grapes, grape wines, copper sulfate and calcium hydroxide. Mixture is nothing but Boradox mixture. Thereafter, a number of insecticides and pesticides, bactericides, avicides, molluscicides, herbicides. So n number of chemicals are now available in the market, but their indiscriminate use increase your cost, and also increasing and also damaging your environment. So this has to be used as a last resort. So we discussed about what we call so many strategies. One is cultural, then mechanical, then physical, then biological, then chemical also we discussed. And the last one is genetical. This is the recent one. The genetical strategy is the recent one. So genetics means here use of, inheritance, Mendel's laws, Mendelian inheritance. The principles of genetics are being exploited and the genes are being exploited to protect various crops against the onslaught of pathogens and insects or your weeds. So this production of high yielding varieties is one aspect, and the other is disease and pest resistant varieties. We have seen while discussing, I told you number of varieties are there. Blast, blight resistance, blast and even rust, smuts resistance we have seen. A number of varieties are now available. IR8, IR24, IR20, Aruna, JL1, JL3 in case of groundnut. So many types of Coimbatore varieties in case of sugarcane. So n number of Moti, Palnadu. So many disease resistant varieties and high yielding varieties have been produced. This has been because of the plant breeders intervention. So whenever I say plant breeding and hybrids, what comes to your mind? Green revolution comes to your mind. So till 1960s, so most of the countries, especially third world countries, developing countries, people died of starvation. Starvations, deaths were lot. They run into, lakhs. People used to die of, starvation in those days. Because the traditional varieties are long duration varieties. The yield was very less. So because of that, even weather, inclement weather, no supply of, irrigation facilities were not there. Because of that, low yields were available and people suffered with lack of food. But thanks to the efforts of so many scientists worked. Norman Borlaug to mention first. Whenever we say India, MS Swaminathan and his team, they worked a lot and were able to produce high yielding, very short duration, high yielding varieties, and also with disease resistance. Resistance against viruses, resistant against bacteria, resistant against nematodes, resistant against weeds. So like this, many disease and pathogen pest resistant varieties were produced. Now this involves what we call plant breeding. So in plant breeding, what they do, they select parental plants. One may have high yielding variety, yielding may be more, but susceptible to but may be susceptible to various pests and diseases. So by using these plant breeding techniques, the disease resistant genes from the wild ones were transmitted to cultivars. Generally, wild ones or forest growing ones, they have more resistance than the cultivars. So the genes from the wild ones were separated and introduced into the cultivars. So that way, the disease resistance was introduced. But of course, it was a cumbersome process. Plant breeding is a cumbersome process. You'll be surprised. For the production of one variety, group of scientists may take 10 to 15 years. It's a cumbersome process. And at the end, even it may give you both desirable and undesirable characteristics. When you are crossing, no plant or no human being, no animal has all desirable characteristics. Yeah, a good person means a good person need not have all good characteristics. He shall have few undesirable characteristics, but good characters outnumber undesirable. So also in plants also, a plant may have so many good characteristics, but one or two bad characteristics may be there. When you cross, along with good characteristics or desirable characters, undesirable characters may also make an entry. So to avoid this, scientists have discovered new methods wherein not the big genome, not group of genes, but one or two genes, desirable genes from a related or unrelated organism may be separated by using various vectors, and that will be transmitted or transferred into your crop of importance. So this is what we call the recent advances, especially in biotechnology and molecular biology. Recent advances in molecular biology and biotechnology made it possible to transfer specified genes into your elite crops. So this technology, what we call rDNA technology or recombinant DNA technology, wherein you transfer the desirable genes into your cultivars for getting the desirable characteristics, maybe in the form of yield or maybe secondary metabolites, maybe. The important products which you wish to have, you can have them by introducing desirable genes. This is possible by using what we call recombinant DNA technology, and the plants with altered genome are called genetically modified plants or GM plants or genetically engineered plants. So by using this rDNA technology, a number of genetically modified plants are produced, and these plants are otherwise called transgenic. So transgenic means generally in doing a plant breeding program, what we do generally we try to cross related ones, intraspecific, intravarietal. But as you grow far and far, the cross between species and species, cross between genera and genera, unrelated, cross between different families becomes very, very difficult. But by using this rDNA technology, now it is possible even to transfer from, between different genera, between different families, not only that, between different kingdoms. Now, scientists are able to transfer desirable genes from bacteria into your crop plants. And thus, we could generate or produce genetically modified plants or genetically engineered plants. So they offer, there will be high yield will be there, and better controlled weed control will be there, and biotic stresses, that is, diseases of viral, fungal, bacterial, and insect damage can be minimized, and even abiotic stress. So if See, in South India and in our area, the weather is not, you don't see extreme weather conditions. But if you go to North India, Kashmir, Himachal area, there you will find, very hot climate and very cold climate, 0 degrees centigrade also. So under those extreme conditions, all plants may not survive, all crops may not survive. So that stress is what we call abiotic stress. So such extreme weather conditions are also, tolerated by these genetically modified plants. So this is how plants, scientists are able to produce these abiotic and biotic, tolerating high yielding varieties. So now scientists tried to produce, viral resistant plants, bacterial resistant plants, and even, weed resistant plants, fungal resistant plants. They have tried, but we concentrate more on what we call disease resistance in, insect resistant. So, now, even my earlier, I think in first or second, lecture, I told you about, uh, you know, the high, so, the pesticides or chemical pesticides, what we call insecticides, pesticide consumption is more than 50% in just in cotton. Rest of the 50% used in rice, wheat, your sugarcane, or even orchards, etc., etc. But more than 50% of the pesticides are consumed by the farmers growing cotton. So cotton has been, because it is a cash crop, you get good remunerative prices. But the thing is, before the release of this, what we call insect, resistant varieties, our traditional varieties, that is Gossypium herbaceum, Gossypium arboreum, etc. These are diploid ones. They were susceptible to various, insect attack. Now, it was in America, Monsanto company encouraged people, especially breeders, genetics, to produce these insect resistant, cotton. That is what we call BT cotton. Now, this is very important as far as your exam is concerned. They will ask you, write briefly about BT cotton, or how, this BT is able to kill the aphids, jassids, or bollworms, pink bollworm, American bollworm, or spotted bollworm. So 10 years back or so, especially in the United, Andhra Pradesh, especially the cotton was used to be grown on a large acreage in Guntur, Prakasham districts, where you find what we call, even in Kadapa, in our area, Khammam and Nizamabad, Karimnagar areas, of course, parts of Medak, where black cotton soils are available. So they are very suitable for raising your cotton. So in those areas, because of, high doses of fertilizers, and because of, lack of resistance against these pests, people used to suffer a lot. So unable to repay the debts, farmers used to extreme conditions of suicides. But now, after the advent or after the release of this BT, BT cotton, now of course, dependence on chemicals has dropped drastically, and our people are getting, good yields. So now this BT, as the term tells you, BT is nothing but Bacillus thuringiensis. So Bacillus thuringiensis is a soil bacterium, and it has the capacity to produce, toxic protein known as endotoxin. It is an endotoxin, a protein. It is able to, or the genes that are present in the plasmid of this Bacillus thuringiensis has the capacity to code for a protein, a toxic protein. And any organism, especially caterpillar or aphids, etc., whenever they happen to ingest this toxin into their body, they get killed. So farmers or the scientists, what did they do? They succeeded in transferring the gene from this bacterium into cotton. And that cotton with the gene from this bacillus or Bacillus thuringiensis is what we call BT cotton. BT cotton. So now BT, I told you already, it is a soil borne. It is a soil living bacilli form of gram-negative bacterium, and it is free. It is a free living, and whenever it enters, into a host, now it releases or it codes for a toxin known as endotoxin, and more specifically, that toxin is known as cryogene and cryoprotein. Cryo means cry means crystal protein. That protein, the toxic protein or endotoxin is known as a crystal protein. These crystal proteins are produced wherever the gene is present. So when the gene is transferred into what we call the gossypium or cotton, now it expresses itself. So so that gene is present in all cells of the cotton. They are there in its root system, stem, flowers, leaves. Now, generally, even balls. So leaf cells are present. They are present in the leaf cells. Even they are present in the cotton bollworms. So whenever the caterpillar feeds, eats, or sucks, so it will be sucking even the protein, that endotoxin. So this endotoxin is, initially it is inactive form. It is in an inactive form. So when it enters into the gut of the caterpillar or this aphid, pink bollworm or American bollworm, when it enters into this caterpillar, now inside the gut, the pH of the gut is 7.5 to 8 pH. That is basic pH. Under this basic pH, the insect secretes certain proteolytic enzymes. So these proteolytic enzymes, they act upon this toxin. And this toxin, whatever the coat, inactive form, it gets activated. So with the activity of this proteolytic enzyme, the inactive form of this toxin becomes active form. In active form, it enters into the gut cells, into epithelial cells. And after entering into epithelial cells, under the influence of that particular protein, the insect does excessive respiration. So when a lot of expiration is done, so if you run, we sweat. We feel thirsty. So here also, because of overactivity, or accelerated respiration, lot of ATP is released, and the caterpillar becomes exhausted, dehydrated. So under dehydrated conditions, its appetite falls, its ability to feed the bolls and the leaves gets reduced, and in due course, in 2 or 3 days, it dies. So here we have not used we did not spray any chemical pesticide, but we have succeeded in introducing toxin producing gene into the plant itself. So whichever the animal, of course, this toxin is not toxic to you and me. Even our animals also do not suffer from. So the only it is specifically it is toxic to small organisms like your caterpillar, lepidopterans. So generally caterpillars and these aphids, bollworms, etc., they are susceptible to this cryoprotein or crystal protein. So that is how now our dependence on chemical pesticides has been drastically reduced, and this is environmentally sound. It is not, it doesn't cause any pollution to your environment. It is not at all toxic to your domestic animals. Even it is not a toxic to even human beings. So it is only it is toxic only to the bollworm feeders. So that is how this BT cotton has been very, very successful. And Monsanto company and Delta company are some of the companies that have successfully produced this, and they are marketing. And now in our market also, generally we buy only BT cotton. BT cotton. So yield is not only good, but even dependence on pesticides has been drastically reduced. Now, taking this as an advantage, the BT genes have been transmitted even into other crops like BT tomato, BT brinjal, BT mustard, etc. There also brinjal you might have seen. You will see so many holes. So even many caterpillars, worms are seen entering into the brinjal. So they have produced even BT brinjal, BT tomato, BT tobacco, and BT maize. Even in India also, our scientists, Department of Biotechnology under Ministry of Agriculture, they have recommended for the release of these BT brinjal and BT tomato. But environmentalists opposed this, and the case is now pending with the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court has given, or it has given a moratorium for 10 years or so. So it is almost 10 years. For 10 years, this has been banned. So we're saying that we don't know this bacteria may also make an entry into human beings. We don't know how it behaves. Even it may undergo what we call mutation. So to avoid that, extra precaution has to be taken. That's why now it is pending with the Supreme Court. But of course, in other countries, in America and other European countries, this BT food crops are in a great demand, and they are able to produce on a large scale. So now this BT has many, many advantages. This biotic, abiotic stress, yield will be more, dependence on, chemicals will be less. And these are environmental friendly. So this is the, genetical method of pest control. So now we move to what we call last one and the important one, that one, what is called the integrated pest management. So whatever we have so far learned, that we will discuss in nutshell. That is nothing but integrated pest management. So this integrated pest management, what is this integrated? This is what we call IPM. IPM is nothing but integrated pest management. So this integrated pest management is a holistic and eco-friendly approach for the sustainable agriculture that focuses on managing insects, pathogens, weeds through a combination of various management procedures, which we have discussed, such as cultural, physical, biological, chemical methods, and which are cost effective and environmentally sound and socially acceptable. This is, what the IPM means. So just singly speaking, what is this integrated pest management? It is a practice of controlling various diseases and pests through a combination of various pest management or disease management practices such as cultural, physical, mechanical, biological, genetical, and chemical methods is what we call integrated pest management. So this integrated pest management, you find what we call an IPM triangle. So in IPM triangle at the base you find what we call prevention. So from prevention, as you go up the cone, so first we give importance to cultural, then we give importance to physical, then we give importance to mechanical measures, then we give importance to biological measures, and last resort we go for chemical management. So what I mean to say is, so we should go for natural processes, preventive measures, cultural, physical, mechanical, biological, genetical. Then finally, if all fail, then you go for chemical method of this pest management. So this integrated pest management, now this integrated pest management, this concept of integrated pest management was given by Smith and Baden-Bosch in 1967, and of course even Food and Agriculture Organization in UNO body, even that also accepted this, and even India also from 1960s. Even we are following this, especially nowadays, some 60 developing countries under the auspices of Food and Agriculture Organization, this has been followed, and especially under operational research project, now this has been in force in India from 1974-75 or so, and year after year, the Ministry of Agriculture and ICR, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, they are the um, main institute, bodies that look after this integrated pest management as far as India is concerned. Now, this integrated pest management, I told you this is this primarily, it's an holistic and eco-friendly approach. You have to be very careful. It's an holistic approach, not one. So here the approach is not one, only cultural or only mechanical or only physical or only biological. So you do based on the nature of your crop, based on the region where you are located, based on the time when you have sown the crop, and based on the pathogen that is found in your area, you employ different strategies, starting from preventive to that of biological one, and only as a last resort, you make use of these chemicals to control the various pests and diseases. So it is a holistic eco-friendly approach for the sustainable agriculture, and mainly focusing on various damaging insects, weeds, diseases through a combination of management principles of cultural, physical, mechanical, biological, and chemical means. So here the approach is not one. Based on, I told you, based on your location, based on the nature of the crop, based on the nature of the pathogen, you use one or two or combination of many methods, and see that the disease causing organism is below economic threshold. See, you have to remember one more thing. Our aim is not to eliminate the disease causing organisms. We have no right to eliminate. Only our aim is to check their spread. We see that they are not in damaging proportions. They are not they are below economic threshold level. So we see that they are below the economic threshold level, and we farmers do not suffer from crop loss. So for that, we make use of all these cultural, physical, mechanical, biological methods, and finally your chemical methods, one or two or in different combinations we use. But here one has to be very, very careful. Here, what we do is we generally here it is a unified, not a single man's affair. Here, the scientists are involved, the field staff are involved, agriculture scientists, agriculture managers are involved. And not only that, recent advances in this pest control methods, all these are put together, and finally the expert, the scientists, they decide. They will advise you which type of control measure you are supposed to use. So this is a holistic approach involving all your management pest management techniques, starting from cultural to that of chemical measures, and see that they are the disease causing organisms are below the economic threshold level. So here, this integrated pest management has three important components. One is what we call integrated disease management, integrated insect management, integrated weed management. These three put together are called integrated pest management. So whenever we say pest, it includes disease causing bacteria, disease causing fungi, disease causing nematodes, disease causing insects, and economically, damaging your parasitic weeds also. So our aim is to keep the disease causing organism below the economic threshold level. So here, generally, we see that the disease organism does not make an entry into your field. And here generally it involves, generally this, objectives, main objectives of this integrated pest management and important principles of this integrated pest management are what we call, one is the prevention, the second one is identification, third is what we call monitoring, the fourth one is action decision, and the other is treatment, and the final is evaluation. So it is a stepwise manner. So first one is prevention. So here under prevention, what we do, you take all measures, starting from your culture. We employ. We see that various, that is sowing time, your field, deep ploughing, your crop rotation, your flooding, and what we call generally liming, and even sanitation of your godowns, sanitation of your fields, etc. We use all these cultural methods. See that the pest is below economic threshold level. That you should keep in mind. So our aim is not to eliminate the disease causing organ, but checking its prevalence. They do not reach a condition wherein they cause a lot of damage to our crops. So then identification. So first one is prevention. You tried a lot, but still, if you see the presence of a given bacterium, fungus, virus, or a pest in your field, then what you do? You identify that. Identification is very, very important. So identification is very, very important. If you do not understand, if you do not identify, generally what we do, if you go to a doctor. So generally, some people, with little knowledge, they go on prescribing, they go on changing one drug or one tablet after the other tablet. This is trial and error. Wastage of money, wastage of time. So to avoid that, what is needed? You have to identify that particular pathogen. So once identification is done, means 50% of your problem is solved. So you have to identify that particular pathogen, whether it is a fungus, whether it is a bacterium, whether it is a virus, whether it is a, a pest, and what kind of a pest it is. So like that, once you identify this, then 50% of the problem is done. So what we do after identifying, generally you study about its life cycle. You want to break its life cycle. You want to check its growth. You want to interfere with its reproduction. You want to interfere with its spreading. So thereby, not only you will be protecting your field, but also you will be protecting the field of your neighborhood. So then a third one is what is called monitoring. After identifying, what you have to do, you have to monitor its pace of development, how it is spreading, whether it is initial stage or whether it has crossed, what we call, threshold level stage. So this you have to monitoring. So generally for monitoring, generally what we do, you employ, field experts will be there, and generally agricultural, people will be there. Nowadays, in every village we have, after creation of so many districts, in every taluka, in every mandal, we have agricultural officers. And we have a number of agriculture research institutes and agricultural universities are there. They are the people. So from field, they'll collect all the data, and that will be ultimately given to the expert, and expert will take a decision. So he will be monitoring, and by taking all the inputs from the field staff, he will come to a conclusion. Then he will take a decision. So based on the inputs available from the field staff, the expert will take a decision. What type of managemental practices that are to be taken up? So generally here, generally we don't go for one type of, manage. So generally we go for a combination of these disease or pest management practices. So generally it has been, experience that generally you don't go for a single type of manager. Maybe even it could be what we call a chemical also. Don't go on using the same chemical n number of times. Instead of that, you go for different combinations, multiple drugs, multiple chemicals, multiple manager practices will give you better results. So that is what we call, monitoring, then decision, then treatment. Or chemical is good. Which one is good? Or which combinations are better for particular field or particular area? This will be decided by the expert. Then evaluation. Finally, after using all these, generally, finally they will evaluate how effective our managerial practices were. And this will be, they'll be publishing this, and that will be useful for even other areas also. This is a unified, it is a work of a team work, it is, and a number of practices, not one. So then already I told you, this integrated IPM involves integrated disease management, integrated insect management, and integrated what we call weed management. All these put together will give you better results. So now, advantages of these IPM. Advantages, generally, this is a, so when you use chemical, generally, when you spread chemicals, when you spray chemicals, generally the disease-causing organisms tend to develop what we call disease resistance. Antibiotic resistance, if you go on taking antibiotics, for even for your cough, or your even small, fever, etc. Some people go for a repeated use of antibiotics. So if you go on using indiscriminate use, you are likely to develop what we call antibiotic resistance. So that in that cases, no antibiotic will work. So here, slower, because you are using so many strategies, so the possibility of developing disease resistance is very low. And the risk for the sprayers is reduced, and the contamination of your environment and your food gets, because you are using so many strategies, gets reduced, and dependence on chemicals gets drastically reduced, and your agriculture becomes a sustainable agriculture, and what we call it becomes cost effective, because you are not using chemicals, not discriminate indiscriminate use. You are exploiting other non-chemical strategies, starting from cultural, physical, mechanical, biological, last chemical. So hence your input cost, or it becomes cost effective. Okay, now long term, it your problems can be checked. So, but there are certain disadvantages. The disadvantage, two or three disadvantages, are because it is a collective effort, not one. Not farmer cannot take a decision. So for this, what we call field staff are needed, agriculture officers are needed. Then it has to go to the scientists and group of scientists again by taking this data. Ultimately, it's a combined effect. So it needs cooperation from different staff members, and even initially for all this, it becomes cost effective, higher cost. Initially, it becomes very a costly affair, expensive. It is quite expensive, and generally because involvement of so many people are there, and generally we cannot expect in a democratic and other areas. So our people will not work voluntarily unless some fear is there, some force is there from top, generally eliciting cooperation from lower areas. It becomes very, very difficult. So this is what we call IPM, integrated pest management. So integrated pest management is a holistic, it's a combined and a holistic affair, wherein not one but all these strategies, cultural, physical, mechanical, biological, and finally your chemical, are involved either singly or in a combination, and with keeping one eye, that is keeping the threshold level of disease causing organism below the threshold level. Our aim is not to eliminate any organism. Our aim is not to go for indiscriminate use of chemicals. Dependence on chemicals has to be reduced, so that it is environmentally sound, cost effective, and socially acceptable, and ultimately leading to what we call sustainable agriculture. So this is about our syllabus for what we call plant disease management. Now we have 2 or 3 minutes more, and if you have any doubt, you can you can raise your doubts, and I'll try to. So the thing is, because we have uh, the modified syllabus. I mean, even pattern of your examination is changed. Now, no more objective. Objective is not there. You get, short answers, long answers, and very long answers. Very long answers are there. And generally, you have, for short answers, you have choices. But for other things, you have to choose either of them. So almost all chapters are very, very important. So major disease of crop plants and major pests we have seen, and plant disease management and ecological pest management and integrated pest managements are there. And each and every unit we have, 4 blocks are there. In each block we have 3 units, and thus we have in all 12 units are there. All the 12 are very, very important. But the last one, this integrated IPM is very, very important for you. Integrated pest management is very, very important. And diseases, one part, and management is the other part. So, any doubt? So, if you don't have any doubt, I'll call it a day and wish you best of luck in the forthcoming examinations. Thank you for your patient hearing. See you. Of course, you are in last semester.